The Orion crown floated above Earth's atmosphere like a glittering jewel, its crystal observation dome reflecting the blue oceans below and the endless stars beyond. The orbital resort had become the favorite destination of wealthy families eager to display their fortunes, and tonight it was overflowing with expensive decorations, floating holograms, live alien musicians, and tables covered with food imported from half the civilized galaxy. My parents had spared no expense celebrating their 30th wedding anniversary. At least, that's what they wanted everyone to believe. The guest list included business owners, retired military officers, politicians, and several off-world diplomats. Everywhere I looked, people compared luxury star yachts, investment portfolios, and vacations on planets whose names I could barely pronounce. I arrived 20 minutes late, still wearing the simple gray jacket from my engineering shift. My hands carried the faint scent of machine oil despite washing them twice. Repairing emergency rescue stations wasn't glamorous work, but broken gravity stabilizers didn't care whether the technician wore an expensive suit. The moment I stepped into the ballroom, I heard my sister's unmistakable laugh. "There he is," she announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. "Everyone, my little brother finally escaped his toolbox." Several people chuckled politely. She walked toward me wearing a shimmering silver dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Diamonds sparkled around her neck, and her wrist displayed the newest luxury hollow watch released only weeks earlier. She looked me up and down. "You actually came dressed like that?" I smiled. "I came straight from work." "Exactly my point." More laughter. She linked her arm with one of the wealthy guests and continued talking without waiting for my reply. "I keep telling him image matters, but he thinks saving broken machines is some noble calling." I shrugged. "The machines are usually attached to people." "Oh, listen to him." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Always the hero." Our mother appeared almost instantly. She kissed my sister on the cheek before glancing toward me. "You couldn't rent a proper suit?" "I didn't have time." "You always have an excuse." Before I could answer, she turned back toward the guests with a warm smile that completely disappeared whenever she looked at me. "My daughter flew back from the Vega resorts this morning. 3 luxury planets in one vacation." Several women admired the photos projected from my sister's wrist display. Golden beaches, floating villas, private star cruises, alien spas. My sister noticed me looking. "You've probably never seen a resort with actual sunshine instead of maintenance tunnels." "I've seen enough stars to keep me happy." She laughed. "That's because you work under them." The conversation drifted away while I quietly found a place near one of the panoramic windows overlooking Earth. Truthfully, none of it bothered me anymore. People like my sister chased attention. I preferred peace. A few minutes later, the master of ceremonies announced dinner. Dozens of robotic servers uncovered enormous buffet tables. Steam rose from roasted lunar cattle. Fresh seafood harvested from Europa's ocean farms. Colorful alien fruits shimmered beneath soft lights. Desserts floated gently inside tiny anti-gravity fields. Even I had to admit everything looked incredible. Guests formed long lines while chatting happily. I waited patiently until most people had filled their plates. As I reached for a serving spoon, I noticed someone watching me from across the room. She wasn't human. Tall and graceful, with silver blue skin that shimmered like moonlight, she wore the formal robes of an interstellar diplomat. Her violet eyes calmly observed everything happening around her, not with arrogance, but quiet curiosity. Unlike the others, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. When our eyes met, she offered a small, genuine smile. I nodded politely before returning my attention to the buffet. I placed a slice of roasted meat onto my plate, then vegetables, a spoonful of rice. Just as I reached for another serving, my mother's voice echoed across the ballroom. "Don't fill your plate." The room instantly became quiet. I slowly turned around. She stood only a few feet away, arms folded tightly. "You didn't pay for this." Every nearby conversation stopped. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Even the musicians hesitated. Heat rushed into my face. She wasn't whispering. She wanted everyone to hear. My sister folded her arms beside her, wearing the satisfied smile she always had whenever I became the evening's entertainment. "Mom's right," she added loudly. "Maybe leave some food for the people who actually contributed." A businessman snorted into his drink. Someone awkwardly looked away. Nobody spoke. I looked down at my plate. Without saying a word, I placed half the food back onto the serving trays. The silence somehow became even heavier. "I wasn't that hungry anyway," I said quietly. I walked away before anyone could respond. Finding an empty table beside the observation window, I sat alone with my small meal while laughter slowly returned to the ballroom. Across the room, my sister resumed telling exaggerated stories about luxury vacations and exclusive shopping districts. Guests gathered around her, fascinated by every expensive detail. From where I sat, I could see the reflection of Earth below. Tiny, peaceful, beautiful. Compared to the universe outside, arguments about money suddenly felt unbelievably small. A gentle voice interrupted my thoughts. "May I sit here?" I looked up. The alien diplomat stood beside my table, holding her own untouched plate. "Of course." She sat without hesitation. For a few moments, neither of us spoke. Then she glanced toward my family, who remained busy entertaining their admirers. "In my world," she said softly, "families compete to honor the one who serves others." I smiled faintly. Earth has a few families like that. "And yours?" I looked toward my mother, laughing with my sister. "They're still under construction." To my surprise, she laughed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't polite. It was warm enough to make me forget the embarrassment of the last few minutes. She extended one elegant hand. "I believe this is where humans introduce themselves." For the first time that evening, I felt something unexpected. Hope. She introduced herself with effortless grace, her voice carrying the calm confidence of someone who had traveled farther than most people could imagine. "I'm Lyra." I shook her hand. "I'm surprised you're sitting with the only person at this party eating half a dinner." She glanced at my plate before smiling. "On my world, refusing to waste food is considered honorable. Then you'd fit in at every family barbecue on Earth." She laughed again. The sound was warm enough to erase the sting of my mother's words. Unlike everyone else, she didn't seem interested in my clothes or whether I owned an expensive star yacht. Instead, she asked about my work. "So, what exactly do you repair?" "Emergency rescue stations. Mostly orbital life support systems, docking stabilizers, and evacuation networks." Her eyes brightened. "You're an engineer?" "I try to be." She tilted her head. "You say that as though it isn't important." "I spend most days crawling through maintenance shafts covered in grease." "In my civilization," she replied, "those who keep others alive are celebrated above politicians." I nearly laughed. Earth still hasn't figured that part out. While we talked, the celebration returned to full volume. Music filled the ballroom once again, and guests drifted back toward my parents and sister, who had quickly regained everyone's attention. My sister climbed onto the small presentation platform near the dance floor and activated another holographic slideshow. "This," she announced dramatically, "is the private beach on Azure 9. Crystal blue waves rolled across the holographic display. Only elite members can visit." Several guests gasped. "And this," she continued proudly, "is the penthouse suite where I spent New Year's." The room filled with impressed murmurs. Someone asked how much the vacation had cost. She casually waved a hand. "I stopped checking prices years ago." My mother beamed with pride. She's always had expensive taste. One elderly guest looked toward me. "And what about your son?" Before I could answer, my sister did it for me. He specializes in making sure toilets still flush on space stations. The crowd burst into laughter. I smiled politely. "Gravity pumps, actually." She smirked. "See? Even his corrections sound boring." Lyra leaned closer. "They laugh because they believe status creates value." "And does it?" She looked directly into my eyes. "No." For reasons I couldn't explain, hearing that from someone completely outside my family mattered more than I expected. The music shifted into a slower melody as robotic servers carried trays of desserts around the ballroom. My sister accepted the largest chocolate sculpture she could find. She noticed my smaller slice and couldn't resist another jab. Careful, she called across the room. Mom might charge you extra if you take whipped cream. Several guests laughed again. I simply raised my fork. I'll survive. That's your problem, she replied. You always settle for surviving instead of living. Lyra quietly whispered. She mistakes spending money for living. Before I could respond, the grand entrance doors slid open. 5 strangers entered the ballroom. Unlike the elegantly dressed guests, these visitors wore dark professional uniforms with silver insignias on their sleeves. Each carried a sleek digital case and projected the unmistakable confidence of people who had legal authority. The nearest robotic attendant floated toward them. Welcome. May I help you? We're looking for Miss Evelyn Carter. My sister froze. It was only for a second. Then she smiled brightly. Oh, that's me. She waved confidently. If you're delivering another gift, you can leave it right over. We're here regarding outstanding financial obligations. The room became noticeably quieter. My sister laughed. Oh, very funny. We're completely serious. One of the officials opened a holographic display. Miss Evelyn Carter, we have court authorization to begin recovery procedures concerning 83 delinquent accounts. The smile disappeared from her face. There has to be a mistake. There isn't. My mother immediately stepped forward. My daughter pays all her bills. The official calmly rotated the holographic screen so everyone nearby could see. Luxury apartment on Luna Prime. 31 months overdue. Another screen appeared. Designer fashion imports from the Altair collection. Another. Private resort membership. Another. Interstellar cruise package. Another. 16 luxury handbags. Another. Jewelry purchases. Another. Personal hover limousine. The list kept growing. Gasps spread throughout the ballroom. Guests who had admired her glamorous lifestyle only moments earlier exchanged uncomfortable looks. One businessman quietly muttered, "That's a lot of debt." Another guest whispered, "She said everything was paid in cash." The lead collector remained perfectly calm. The total outstanding balance currently exceeds 4.7 million galactic credits. Someone nearly dropped a champagne glass. My father stared at my sister. Tell them they're wrong. She forced another nervous laugh. I was going to pay everything. When? Soon. Our records indicate that you've said soon during the last 47 collection notices. A ripple of barely contained laughter moved through the crowd. One elderly aunt covered her mouth to hide a grin. My sister's confidence began crumbling. My investments are tied up. The collector checked his tablet. Our investigation found no investments. My business. There is no registered business. My travel sponsorships. We contacted those companies. She swallowed hard. They've never heard of you. Silence. Absolute silence. The collector continued reading without changing his expression. According to your financial history, every vacation displayed tonight was financed entirely through unpaid credit. He switched images. The jewelry is financed. Another image. The dresses are financed. Another. The penthouse photographs were taken during promotional trial weekends that were never fully paid. Even the musicians stopped pretending not to listen. My mother's face had turned completely pale. No, she whispered. She told us she was successful. I am successful, my sister shouted. The lead collector looked around the lavish ballroom before asking one simple question. If that is true, would you like to make a payment now? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. For the first time in her life, there wasn't a clever joke, an expensive accessory, or a glamorous story that could save her. Beside me, Lyra calmly sipped her drink. Without the slightest trace of satisfaction, she quietly said, "The brightest stars are real. The artificial ones always lose power eventually." I looked toward my sister as every admiring smile in the ballroom slowly disappeared, replaced by disbelief. The celebration had transformed into something no one would ever forget. The silence hanging over the ballroom lasted only a few seconds before it was replaced by whispers. The whispers became conversations. The conversations became barely disguised laughter. Guests who had spent the last hour admiring my sister's glamorous stories suddenly found the dessert tables far more interesting than speaking to her. The debt collectors remained professional. "We'll begin documenting recoverable assets," the lead officer said. My sister took a frantic step backward. "You can't do that here." "We can. This is a private family celebration. It became a legal matter several years ago." Another officer calmly scanned the jewelry around her neck. "This necklace matches one listed in our recovery order." She instinctively covered it with both hands. "My boyfriend gave me this." Our records show it was purchased with an unpaid luxury credit account. One of my uncles couldn't help himself. "So, your boyfriend's name is Galactic Finance?" A burst of laughter erupted from nearby tables. Even a few robotic servers paused as if they had detected humor. My sister shot my uncle a furious glare. "This isn't funny." "No," he admitted while trying not to smile. "It's becoming hilarious." The collectors continued their work. One officer politely requested her designer handbag. Another documented the expensive holowatch she'd proudly displayed all evening. A third scanned the keys to the hover limousine parked outside the station. My mother finally snapped. "This is harassment." The lead collector remained calm. "Ma'am, we've sent 83 notices." "We never saw 83 notices. They were sent to the luxury apartment your daughter claimed was fully paid." My father slowly turned toward my sister. "You told us you owned that apartment." "I do." The collector gently corrected her. "The bank does." Another ripple of laughter spread through the guests. Someone whispered, "That's a very expensive rental." My sister looked as though she wanted the station's airlock to open beneath her feet. Meanwhile, Lyra quietly watched everything without saying a word. Unlike everyone else, there wasn't even a hint of amusement in her expression. She simply looked disappointed. I leaned toward her. "You're probably wondering why humans enjoy embarrassing each other." She smiled softly. "I'm wondering why good humans spend so much time trying to impress bad ones." Before I could answer, another announcement echoed through the ballroom. "Attention! Incoming diplomatic shuttle requesting landing clearance." Several guests looked toward the observation dome. A sleek silver vessel descended toward the station. One businessman whispered excitedly, "That crest belongs to the Galactic Rescue Alliance." Even Lyra seemed surprised. I wasn't expecting them tonight. Minutes later, 3 uniformed officers entered the ballroom. Unlike the debt collectors, these individuals wore white and blue ceremonial uniforms covered in medals. Their commander scanned the room before smiling broadly. "There you are." Everyone assumed he was addressing my father. Instead, he walked directly toward me. He extended both hands. "Chief Engineer, it's wonderful to finally meet you in person." I blinked. "I'm sorry." He laughed. Still humble. Exactly as the reports described. The ballroom fell completely silent again. The commander turned toward the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you'll forgive the interruption, but finding this man has saved me weeks of searching." Every pair of eyes shifted toward me. My sister looked completely confused. The commander continued. 6 months ago, Station Kappa 9 suffered catastrophic reactor damage." Several guests nodded. The accident had been broadcast across dozens of systems. "Our evacuation network failed." He smiled at me. "Until someone remotely rewrote the emergency stabilization software." Recognition spread across a few faces. That rewrite prevented the station from losing artificial gravity. He nodded. "It saved 412 civilians." A quiet murmur rolled across the ballroom. The commander wasn't finished. 3 months later, the same engineer redesigned emergency rescue protocols now used throughout Alliance space. He reached into a polished case. "For extraordinary service to humanity and our allied civilizations." He removed a gleaming crystal medal. The Galactic Rescue Alliance proudly awards its highest civilian engineering honor. He placed the medal around my neck. Applause slowly began, then grew louder, then filled the ballroom. Several guests who had ignored me earlier now stared in disbelief. One businessman whispered, "That's the highest engineering award in known space." Another added, "Only 6 people have ever received one." My mother looked completely speechless. My father quietly asked, "You never told us." I shrugged. "You never ask." Those 4 words seemed to hit harder than any accusation. The commander opened another case. This also includes a lifetime research grant and an appointment as Chief Systems Director for the Galactic Rescue Alliance. He handed me an authorization crystal. Its value was more money than my sister had pretended to own. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My sister stared at the crystal. "So, you're rich?" I smiled. "I guess I'm comfortable." "You've been hiding this?" "I've been working." More laughter echoed through the ballroom. This time, nobody was laughing at me. Lyra stepped forward. "There is one detail Commander Hayes forgot to mention." The commander smiled. "I suspected you knew." She looked around the room. "My people study remarkable civilizations before opening permanent diplomatic relations." The guests listened carefully. For the last decade, every rescue system developed by this man has become required study in our diplomatic academies. My mother frowned. "Why?" "Because humans possess a rare instinct." Lyra looked directly at me. "They build machines whose first purpose is saving strangers." She smiled with unmistakable admiration. "Many advanced civilizations create technology for profit." Then she gently touched the metal resting against my chest. "He created technology, so people he would never meet could live." Her voice softened. "Among my people, that is considered one of the purest forms of greatness." For a brief moment, neither of us spoke. The ballroom around us seemed to disappear. She looked into my eyes with genuine affection, not because of the award, but because she understood why I'd built those systems in the first place. "I hoped," she admitted quietly, "that the reports describing your character were exaggerated." "Were they?" She smiled.
No.
She laughed softly. "They underestimated you." Behind us, guests who had once crowded around my sister were now surrounding us instead, asking questions about rescue missions, engineering projects, and life beyond Earth. My sister stood alone, watching as the admiration she had spent years trying to buy naturally found its way to the one person she had mocked all evening. The celebration slowly resumed, but it was nothing like the glamorous party that had begun earlier that evening. Instead of discussing luxury vacations and designer brands, people gathered in small circles talking about rescue missions, engineering breakthroughs, and the surprising turn the anniversary celebration had taken. The debt collectors finished cataloging the assets they were legally authorized to recover. One by one, my sister surrendered the symbols of the life she had spent years pretending to own. The sparkling necklace disappeared into a secure case. The designer handbag followed. Even expensive holowatch that had impressed so many guests only an hour earlier was carefully packaged for repossession. As one collector reached for a pair of glittering shoes displayed beside the dance floor, an elderly family friend couldn't resist whispering, "Those shoes have traveled farther than she has." The people standing nearby burst into laughter. Even my father struggled to hide a smile before quickly remembering he probably shouldn't. For the first time all evening, my sister didn't have a sarcastic comeback. She simply stood there with tears forming in her eyes. The illusion was gone. Not just for everyone else. For her as well. When the collectors finally left, the ballroom felt strangely peaceful. Most of the guests quietly resumed eating and talking, though now they seemed far more interested in genuine conversations than expensive appearances. My mother slowly walked toward me. Her confident posture had disappeared. She stopped a few feet away, looking down instead of meeting my eyes. "I owe you an apology." I remained silent. She took a deep breath. "When you were a child, you never cared about expensive toys." I smiled faintly. "I liked building them more." A sad laugh escaped her. "I should have realized then who you were becoming." She looked at the metal around my neck. "We spent years admiring appearances while ignoring real accomplishments." My father joined her. "I honestly thought you repaired ordinary machines." "I do. But those machines save lives." "They're supposed to."
He shook his head.
"You say that as though everyone would." Lyra quietly answered for me. "They wouldn't." The room fell silent again. In many civilizations, she continued, wealth determines status. She looked around the ballroom. But humanity has something unusual. Several guests listened carefully. The greatest humans rarely chase recognition. Instead, they quietly solve problems while everyone else competes for attention. My mother wiped away a tear. I never asked about your work.
No.
I only asked why you weren't making more money. I nodded. I know. I'm sorry. For the first time in years, I believed she meant it. A few moments later, my sister slowly approached. Without the expensive jewelry and confident smile, she looked like someone carrying the weight of every bad decision she'd ever made. I hated you. The admission surprised everyone. She continued speaking. You always seemed happy. I frowned. Happy. You never had the clothes I wanted.
No.
You never traveled like I did. Not really. You never showed off. I never had anything to prove. She lowered her head. I thought if people admired me, I'd finally feel successful. She laughed bitterly. So, I kept buying things. Then more things. And every compliment made it easier to borrow even more money. She looked around the nearly empty ballroom. I built my entire life on pretending. I stepped closer. It happens.
No.
She shook her head. I made fun of you because you already had something I couldn't buy. And what's that? She smiled sadly.
Peace.
For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, she wrapped her arms around me. I'm sorry. I hugged her back. The guests quietly applauded. Not because the moment was dramatic, because it was honest. Lyra smiled warmly. My people have an old saying. Everyone looked toward her. The strongest bridges aren't built from perfect stones. She glanced at my family. They're built from repaired ones. The commander from the Galactic Rescue Alliance approached once more. I hate interrupting emotional reunions. I laughed. Go ahead. He handed me a sealed crystal tablet. The Alliance Council has approved your newest assignment. I activated the display. A map of dozens of star systems appeared. Human and Alien Rescue Infrastructure Initiative. I looked at him. This is enormous. It is. Lyra smiled knowingly. I accepted the diplomatic position this morning. I blinked. You knew. I was hoping you'd say yes before I told you. The commander grinned. You'll be working together. I looked at Lyra. So, this wasn't a coincidence. She laughed. I attended the party because I wanted to meet the engineer whose work inspired half the cadets in our academy. And I discovered someone even better than the reports described. She reached for my hand. This mission will take us across 27 worlds. I smiled. Sounds like a long first date. She laughed so hard several nearby guests looked over. In my culture, she replied, traveling the galaxy together counts as a very serious relationship.
Good. Why?
I've never liked rushing things. More laughter filled the ballroom. Even my mother laughed through her tears. As the evening came to an end, the buffet remained open. There was still more food than anyone could possibly eat. I walked back toward the serving tables. My mother hurried over. This time, there was no judgment in her voice. Only hope. Would you like another plate? I looked at the same buffet where she had humiliated me only hours earlier. Then I picked up the largest plate I could find. I filled it generously. Roasted meat, fresh vegetables,
Rice.
desserts, even extra whipped cream. The guests watched curiously. Instead of sitting alone, I carried the plate to my sister. You skipped dinner. She stared at it. I don't deserve this after everything I said. I smiled. Maybe not. She looked down. But everyone deserves another chance. I placed the plate in her hands. She began crying again. This time, they were tears of relief. Lyra gently squeezed my hand. Now I understand why humanity is admired across the stars. I looked at her. For engineering? She shook her head.
No.
For forgiveness. Together we walked toward the observation deck overlooking Earth. The blue planet glowed beneath us while hundreds of stars stretched endlessly into the darkness. For the first time in many years, my family stood together without pretending to be anyone else. No expensive lies. No fake success. No competition. Just honesty. As our shuttle prepared for departure, Lyra intertwined her fingers with mine. So, where shall we save lives first? I smiled as the stars reflected in the station's glass. Everywhere we can. The shuttle lifted smoothly into the endless galaxy, carrying us toward new worlds, new adventures, and a future built not on wealth or appearances, but on compassion, laughter, and love. Across the stars, humanity would be remembered not for the fortunes it accumulated, but for the lives it chose to save and the kindness it never stopped sharing.